we're on. I'm back. I know I'm late. Okay, but it was Living on a Prairie Day. It was Living on a Prairie Day, and it was my episode, and I had to stop everything and just sit there and watch Living on a Prairie, starring me. Because I was in it, and it was good. I was a life coach, and it was fun, and I had to watch it. And there was an interview with me, and I had to watch me talking about myself, for like an hour. Anyway, I am here in my living room, and I have some peanut butter cookies. I have milk. Man, that's good. So I have some milk. And what day is it? We're going to do a little Town on the Prairie. It's like 2 chapters, like 2 short chapters. Gotta go. I got like stuff to do. It's Sunday. Things to do. I have things to do. But Sunday today is June 14th, and it's Flag Day. It's like Sheldon Cooper, Fun with Flags. She put the flag out. Go put the flag. And then it's Gay Pride this weekend. It's Gay Pride. Happy Pride, everybody. And let's see when it's Army birthday. Did you know that it is International Bath Day? I don't know. I guess I'll take a soak later. It's National Strawberry Shortcake Day. I think I'm going to go out and get some strawberries. It's National Flag Day. It's Bourbon Day. National New Mexico Day. National Children's Day. And, are you ready for this? I didn't know this was a day. It is National Pop Goes the Weasel Day. Who knew there was a National Pop Goes the Weasel? And I don't have a Pop Goes the Weasel. I have a Pop Goes the Sock Monkey. Because of course I do. But check it, listen. Around the mulberry bush, monkey chased the weasel. Fingers all in fun. Ah! Sock monkey. Pop Goes the Sock Monkey. So that was my tribute to National Pop Goes the Weasel Day. There. Get in. He won't get in. I'll just put him over here. So, there. We did the days. We did the thing. Bonnets. As you know, I was having a little trouble with the store page. And I think I got it. I got some bonnets up, although we sold those. And the Missouri bonnet, I clicked on the things, and then I looked at the display page. It was only displaying like so many items, and I was like, ah. So I like moved, went clicky, and moved things. And now, indeed, the Missouri bonnet is clearly on the page and available. So that is like, woo! Awesome. So that got fixed. So very excited about that. Postage. What did I do? I got, U.S. is sorted, Canada, we figured out like how much that is, so if you Canada. But clearly, I did not realize I had this many people in Australia. I had like one order from Australia. Now I have like a bunch of people in Australia ordering. So I will get in there and turn the knobs and push the buttons so that it says, yes, Australia, and it is this much. And then I'll figure out other countries and what's happening. It's very complicated. The postage thing is very complicated. But I will fix it. In the meantime, Little Town on the Prairie. It is Little Town on the Prairie. And the month of roses. It's the month of roses because it's spring and beautiful. And then $9. And then tomorrow, Monday, is a chapter called The 4th of July. And it's like it's like huge. It's like a whole book about the 4th of July. And which is interesting because they're coming up to like, on the show, we had a 4th of July episode. And here's what was crazy. When we shot it, when we aired it, the year was 1976. Which, if you're very old, you may remember, was the bicentennial. It was the bicentennial of the United States of America. And so we made a big deal. We did an episode called Centennial. So that it was exactly 1876, July 4th, exactly 100 years to the day. And so it was the centennial of America, and they had a whole big centennial party with 100, and we aired it on the bicentennial. Brilliant! But it also meant that we were trying to do Little House exactly 100 years to the day. So that's going to totally happen tomorrow with the thing. And I guess it probably is, because if it probably is in 76. I wonder if it's the centennial or it's like 102. Her timelines are like everywhere. But It is spring. Laura is working in town. The people she's working for are cray-cray. She went to dinner with them, and they were goofy or shanty Irish, and they all yelled at each other and insulted each other for being Irish, and yelled at each other during dinner and acted like it was normal. So there you go. Oh, you all got Missouri bucks. I'm only 100 miles from Mansfield, and you know about these. So I am going to have another sip of milk, and I am going to read about the month of roses. Oh, that's good. Getting my actual chair here. Pillows, things. Oh, so much fun. Okay. All through that lovely month of June, Laura sewed shirts. Wild roses were blooming in great sweeps of pink through the prairie grasses. But Laura saw them only in the early mornings when she and Pa were hurrying to work. The soft morning sky was changing to a clearer blue, and already a few wisps of summer cloud were trailing across it. The roses scented the wind, and along the road the fresh blossoms, with their new petals and golden centers, looked up like little faces. At noon, she knew great white cloud puffs would be sailing in the sparkling blue. Their shadows would drift across blowing grasses and fluttering roses, but at noon, she would be in that noisy kitchen. At night, when she came home, the morning's roses were faded and their petals were scattering on the wind. Still, she was too old now to play anymore. And it was wonderful to think that already she was earning good wages. Every Saturday night, Mrs. White counted out $1.50, and Laura took it home to Ma. Now, it's the Laura is getting older. It's changing. She's already seen Almanzo and kind of gone, there's already something going on there. She's getting old. She's wearing her hair in a big braid and tying it up, not little braids, and she's working, even though she's very young to work. But she's sewing. She's working there. But she's too old to play. I mean, well, in that other book where girls were getting married off in 12 and 13, she's practically an old maid. But she's almost 15. But she's already talking about what she's going to do for work as a teacher. And baby Carrie, baby Grace, they're like little and still play. She's now a big girl. She's 14. So as gorgeous as the Prairie is, she wouldn't really be just goofing and like running around on the ground and picking violets and buttercups. She's 14. She's going to be 15 any minute, so she's a little old to like goof around and play. So she is at work, but it is a bummer because it's like the nicest time of the year and she's only outside for like 5 minutes in the morning and at night. But she's working. It's good money. I don't like to take all your money, Laura, Ma said once. It does seem that you should keep some for yourself. Why, Ma? What for? Laura asked. I don't need anything. Her shoes were still good. She had stockings and underwear, and her calico dress was almost new. All the week, she looked forward to the pleasure of bringing home her wages to Ma. Often she thought, too, that this was only the beginning. True. In 2 more years, she would be 16, old enough to teach school. If she studied hard and faithfully and got a teacher's certificate and then got a school to teach, she would be a real help to Pa and Ma. Then she could begin to repay them for all that it had cost to provide for her since she was a baby. And then surely they could send Mary to college. Now, wait. Okay, Laura's kind of like bonkers here. Yes, it is great that she wants to save up the money to send Mary to college. That's a real thing. But she says, I want to pay Ma and Pa back. Now, it'd be one thing if she said, oh, yeah, well, I lived at home during college and they didn't charge me for rent or food, so I'll pay them back. She's 14. She wants to pay them back for when they clothed and fed her as a baby. No, that's not how that works. No. I mean, really. Imagine your parents, well, let's see, 3 boxes of diapers, that's $29.99. Seriously? She's going to pay back her parents for the food and clothing they provided from infancy. That is not how that works, Laura. So that's a little cray-cray. But yes, paying for Mary for college. It's very nice. And Mary does. We do know that she does finally do it, so that's good. Sometimes she almost asked Ma she could not somehow manage to send Mary to college now, counting on her earnings later to keep Mary there. Maybe. She never quite spoke of it for fear that Ma would say it was too great a chance to take. Still, the faint hope kept her going more cheerfully in town to work. Her wages were a help. She knew that Ma saved every penny could be saved, and Mary would go to college as soon as Ma and Pa could possibly send her. Well, she is making a lot. And remember when Pa was making a lot, and they started putting it away. And when they had the boarders, they were like, and they put every bit of that away. So she's actually got a chunk of change saved up. Now, that school was not cheap. That place in Iowa was not cheap. It was one of the good blind school. So it's a few dollars. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking they may have enough saved up for, the down payment. And if she continued sending it in, they probably could. But I guess they're being a little cautious. Want to make sure they have enough to put down for the deposit and not, have it be iffy. I need it to be iffy. The town was like a sore on the beautiful wild prairie. Wow, Laura really hates town. I like town. I like town better than prairie, but Laura's like, ugh, town. A sore, the prairie. Old haystacks and manure piles were rotting around the stables. The backs of the store's false fronts were rough and ugly. The grass was worn now, even from 2nd Street, and gritty dust blew between the buildings. The town smelled of staleness and dust and smoke and a fatty odor of cooking. Ugh. I guess a lot of fried food at them restaurants. A dank smell came from the saloons, and a musty sourness from the ground by the back doors where the dishwater was thrown out. But after you'd been in town a little while, you did not smell its smells, and there was some interest in seeing strangers go by. Man, she's making this little place sound like Deadwood. You ever see Deadwood? Whoa. That was scary. Deadwood, yeah. I mean, she's making when they do a saloon, so there probably were smelly booze and saloons. Yeah, people go out the back and throw up and stuff. I mean, yeah, it probably stank by the saloons. And the cleanliness we think of today, no water closets, no flushy toilets, and all the disinfectant and stuff. No, they just kind of chuck the garbage out the back and yeah, it probably was pretty gross. Also, no deodorant. The boys and girls that Laura had met in town last winter were not there now. They had gone out to stay on homestead claims. The storekeeper stayed in town to run their stores and batch in the rooms behind them. Oh, that batch. I'm batching it. Batch, while the wives and children lived all summer out on the prairie in claim shanties. For the law was that a man could not keep a homestead claim unless his family lived on it 6 months of every year for 5 years. So there, if you had a claim shanty and a store in town, you had to go back and forth. You had to figure it out. You couldn't just, we'll just move into town. We have a store. It's like, well, then you're a town person. You're a town person. You are not on a claim. You are not a homesteader. You do not need a claim. And then if you had a claim, it's like, well, I want to go to town. You got to stay. Somebody had to stay on the claim. And so they either had to live on the claim and drive the wagon into town every day or park the wife and kids there and sleep in town. It's very difficult to commute. Also, he must keep 10 acres of the sod broken up and planted in crops for 5 years before the government would give him title to the land. But nobody could make a living from that wild land. So the women and the girls stayed all summer in the claim shanties to satisfy the law, and the boys broke the sod and planted crops while the fathers built the town and tried to make money enough to buy food and tools from the east. So they kind of had to work in town. Now, mind you, as harsh as this sounds, it actually sounds kind of good. Or someone said, wait, how could that be enforced? Right, they're going to send somebody out? It's way out in the middle of nowhere. They technically have to send somebody out and check, and I'm not sure how often that happened. But in a way, it makes sense because you know what people are like. You know what people are like. So here's this great idea of the homesteading. Someone who may not have very much money at all. Many of the homesteaders are very poor. We're going to give you, for free, chunk of land. And if you work it and stay on it, you're going to have this title. I mean, that's huge. That's a huge help to someone who doesn't have a lot of money get a farm. But you realize they had to make the rules that you had to be there. You had to actually farm it. You couldn't just go, look, I planted a tomato bush. I'm done. and then go off and run your business. Because they knew what people are like. You know what would happen? Some rich person would have said, oh, I'll buy up like 20 or 30 of those farms. Yeah. And would have gotten like a dozen or 100 homesteads, a company, a corporation, and said, well, they're my homesteads, and taken that land free and not done any farming, not lived on it, used it for. So they had to say, no, you really have to homestead it. But how did they know? How did they know? They couldn't even phone them. It's not like they could phone them. What did they get? They couldn't take pictures. Take a picture and send us. I don't think so. So I don't know. So they had to do it. But then they had to work in town because you'd starve because there wasn't enough to grow in. The more Laura saw the town, the more she realized how well off her own family was, especially the crazy Irish people she's hanging out with. That was because Pa had got a whole year's start ahead of the others. He had broken sod last year. Now they had the garden and the oat field, and the second planting of corn was growing quite well in the sod. Hay would feed the stock through the winter, and Pa could sell the corn and oats to buy coal. All the new settlers were beginning now where Pa had begun a year ago. Wow, Pa Ingalls is actually ahead on something. He's like never ahead. He's like always like a year behind everything. Pa's actually like ahead. We love that. When Laura looked up from her work, she could see almost the whole town because nearly all the buildings were in the 2 blocks across the street. All their false fronts stood up, square-cornered at different heights, trying to make believe that the buildings were 2 stories high. Mead's Hotel at the end of the street, and Beardsley's Hotel almost opposite Laura, and Tinkham's Furniture Store near the middle of the next block. Man, this place is so big it's got 2 hotels. Remember, it was a big deal when we opened Nellie's in Walnut Grove. They got two full-size hotels. Middle of the block really did have 2 stories. Well, the hotel would, right? So the hotel and the big Tinkham's Furniture Store. But can you imagine? 2 whole hotels. Not just a boarding house and a Nellie's, no. Curtains fluttered at their upstairs windows and showed how honest those buildings were in the row of false fronts. Well, that's funny because, our set, fake. We had curtains fluttering in those windows and not a stick of furniture in there, like nothing. The upstairs, the Oleson's Mercantile, the set out on location. Fake, fakety, fake. Terrible. They were real. This was the only difference between them and the other buildings. They were all of pine lumber, beginning to weather gray. Each building had 2 tall glass windows in its front and a door between them. Every door was open now to the warm weather, and every doorway was filled with a strip of faded pink mosquito netting tacked onto a framework to make a screen door. Now, Sarah, you can help me. Why is mosquito netting pink? I mean, I love it. Is it Hello Kitty brand mosquito netting? I don't understand. Mosquito netting now, I've seen mosquito, it's gray, it's black, it's plain, it's just, it isn't a color. I've never seen color, brightly colored mosquito netting, it's just netting. But if she keeps mentioning this bright pink bar, pink netting, that all the mosquito netting is pink. Why? Does somebody know why in the 1800s you had fancy, shiny, hot pink mosquito netting? I have no idea. Someone please tell me that, because that's really weird. In front of them all ran the level board sidewalk. It's a big deal to have a sidewalk. And all along its edge were hitching posts. There were always a few horses in sight tied here and there to the post, and sometimes a wagon with a team of horses or oxen. Once in a while, when she bit off a thread, Laura saw a man cross the sidewalk, untie his horse, swing onto it, and ride away. Sometimes she heard a team and wagon, and when the sounds were louder, she glanced up and saw it passing by. One day, an outburst of confused shouting startled her. She saw a tall man come bursting out of Brown's saloon. The street door loudly slammed shut behind him. They had like more than one saloon, too. It's really rough. With great dignity, the man turned about. He looked haughtily at the screen door, and lifting one long leg, he thrust his foot contemptuously through the pink mosquito netting. Well, it tore jaggedly from top to bottom. A yell of protest came out of the saloon. I guess he wrecked their mosquito netting. The tall man paid no attention whatever to the yell. He turned haughtily away and saw in front of him a round little short man. The short man wanted to go into the saloon. The tall man wanted to walk away, but each was in front of the other. The tall man stood very tall and dignified. The short man stood puffed out with dignity. In the doorway, the saloon keeper complained about the torn screen door. Neither of them paid any attention to him. They looked at each other and grew more and more dignified. Suddenly, the tall man knew what to do. He linked his long arm in the little man's fat arm, and they came down the sidewalk together, singing, "Pull for the shore, sailor, pull for the shore, heed not the stormy winds." Oh, the phrase drunken sailors is coming to me now. The tall man solemnly lifted his long leg and thrust his foot through Hawthorne's screen door. A yell came out, "Hey there, what the—" The two men came on singing, "Though loudly they roar, pull for the shore, sailor." They were as dignified as could be. The tall man's long legs made the longest possible steps. The puffed-out little man tried with dignity to stretch his short legs to steps as long. "Heed not the stormy winds." The tall man gravely thrust his foot through the mosquito netting door of Beardsley's hotel. Mr. Beardsley came boiling out. The man marched solemnly on, "Though loudly they roar." So these guys are hammered, and they're wrecking the mosquito netting in every single doorway in the town. Look, expensive. I mean, first of all, that's expensive. You have to pay for that mosquito netting, but there's like no way to prevent mosquitoes, and it's going to be summer, and they're on the prairie. I mean, you need that mosquito netting. And remember, malaria. We had the malaria episode, but no, they are smashing up everyone's mosquito netting, which is really, really, really strange. Loudly they roar. Laura was laughing so that tears ran out of her eyes. She saw the long, solemn leg rip the mosquito netting in the door of Barker's grocery. Mr. Barker popped out, protesting. The long legs stalking and the fat, short legs gravely stretching went away from him haughtily. "Pull for the shore." The tall man's foot pushed through the screen door of Wilder's feed store. Royal Wilder yanked it open and said what he thought. Ooh, there's going to be some swearing there. The two men stood listening gravely until he stopped for breath. Then the fat little man said with great dignity, "My name is Tay Prairie, and I'm drunk." They went on, arm in arm, chanting those words. First the pudgy little man, "My name is Tay Prairie," and then both together, like bullfrogs, "And I'm drunk." The tall man would not say that his name was T.P. Prairie, but he always said in solemnity, "And I'm drunk." They wheeled square about and marched into the other saloon. Its screen door slammed loudly behind them. Laura held her breath, but that one door's mosquito netting stayed smooth and whole. Laura laughed till her sides ached. She could not stop when Mrs. Whipple snapped out that it was a disgrace to snakes what men would do with liquor in them. A disgrace to snakes what men will do with liquor in them. "Think of the cost of all those screen doors," Mrs. White said. "I'm surprised too. Young folks nowadays seem to have no realizing sense." That evening, when Laura tried to describe those two men so that Mary could see them, no one laughed. "Goodness gracious, Laura, how could you laugh at drunken men?" Ma wanted to know. "Well, I think it is dreadful," Mary added. Pa said, "The tall one was Bill O'Dowd. I know for a fact that his brother brought him to a claim out here to keep him from drinking. 2 saloons in this town are just 2 saloons too many." "It's a pity more men don't say the same," said Ma. "I begin to believe that if there isn't a stop put to the liquor traffic, women must bestir themselves and have something to say about it." Pa twinkled at her. "Seems to me you have plenty to say, Caroline. Ma never left me in doubt as to the evil of drink, nor you either." "Be that as it may be," said Ma. "It's a crying shame that such things can happen before Laura's very eyes." Paul looked at Laura, and his eyes were still twinkling. Laura knew that he didn't blame her for laughing. Now, this is sort of shocking material at the time. Because remember, okay, the books were in the 1870s, came out in the 1930s. And what happened in the late 1920s? That's right. Prohibition. Prohibition. Well, so drinking, liquor got banned at one point. There was prohibition, and then there was coming out of prohibition, so it's like a big, big deal. Now, a lot of people don't realize there was a big temperance movement in the 1800s. You're about like, Carrie Nation, the lady with the axe. And notice Mom keeps saying the women would have something to say, but like only men drank and like no women drank. I'm sure obviously women drank. We all saw Deadwood. Some women drank. The whole thing of like only men drank and women didn't drink, and it was a big deal. And then it was this dangerous thing. And talking about like it's the liquor trafficking. The thing is, back in the day, there weren't like rules like we have now. You know, you go to the store, the alcohol content of the beverages, it's regulated. Beer has this much and wine has this much and hard liquor. But they were drinking some mighty, mighty hard liquor then. Mighty hard. And people would drink themselves into a stupor. They would drink till they just did pass out. People would drink themselves to death. It was the thing. And it was like really crazy. And if you think about the fact of how dangerous things were, like if somebody got really drunk and passed out in the snow, yeah, they can die, right? And or eaten by a bear or whatever. All the things you had to like keep track of in the 1800s to not die. If you got yourself hammered every single day and were like just totally out of it, that would be really dangerous. We live a much more pampered life. Nowadays, people could be drunk for days and, just lie on their couch and get away with it. But times were hard. So a lot of people said, this drinking thing is serious. Oh, Carrie Nation's buried in the town where I live, says Beth. Wow. Well, the other thing is, in the 1800s, remember, women didn't have a lot of rights. Remember, we couldn't vote. Women couldn't vote. No voting. That was until the 20s. And then property. Women could not own property in their own name. Your husband owned it all. Now, they did that state by state. We had an episode of Little House on the Prairie about that. There was a thing like, should we let women have ownership of things? So some places they kind of let women own stuff, but generally the rule was it was the husband's farm. If you got divorced, a woman could leave with nothing. She might just go home to her parents. There wasn't community property didn't exist. There weren't divorce laws where, well, yes, you have to pay her alimony and give her something. Sometimes, if the woman was very poor, if the guy was very rich, a judge might be merciful and say, well, you have to feed the lady and she's got kids. But no, it was very much, the man owned stuff. Women didn't sign contracts. They didn't actually own things. And so they did not have the rights we think of. They had almost no rights. There were also no domestic violence laws as we think of it. It was the first laws even like, hey, maybe you shouldn't beat up your wife. That was like late 1870s. So it's like, wow, it was brutal. It was rough. Like, Ma was so excited that she was married to Charles because he wasn't horrible. He wasn't like beating her and spending all her money on drink. So back then, a woman could marry a guy and she could be working in town. She'd be sewing and bringing it, and he could take every penny of it and go drink in town and leave her and the kids and not buy food. Leave her and the children with no food, not buy food, not pay the rent, and there was literally nothing she could do about it. Now, she'd call it's abandonment, you're not feeding the children, she could divorce him and say, nope. A guy could spend all the money and let the wife and kids starve, and he could beat her and refuse to give her a divorce. That was awful. So women had so little wiggle room to anything that if their husband became an alcoholic and drank and beat them, they didn't have any recourse. They couldn't call the sheriff and say, well, he's beating me, it's against the law. Oh, well, if he starved them and the children, they had no recourse. So at that time, there was a movement to say, well, maybe we should rein in the drinking. Maybe if our husbands weren't drunk, they would leave some money for food for the children and not beat us. So there you are. So that was one of the things. That's why, quite rightly, many women said, well, we're in a really terrible position here. If these guys get drunk, we're doomed. So indeed, they Absolutely tried to shut down the saloons and whatnot. So that's why Ma and the kids are so excited that they have Charles Ingalls for a husband and not like one of those guys in town who are just animals. So there you are. Now, the next chapter 7 is called $9. I don't know yet what's $9. That's a lot of money. $9. Mr. Clancy was not getting so many orders for shirts. It seemed that most of the men who could buy shirts that year had bought them. Well, that's the other thing also. People don't buy shirts like every month or like they buy a shirt every, 20 years or something. One Saturday evening, Mrs. White said, "The spring rush seems to be over." "Yes, ma'am," said Laura. Mrs. White counted out $1.50 and gave it to her. "I won't be needing you any more, so you needn't come in Monday morning," she said. "Goodbye." Not very nice lady. "Goodbye," Laura said. She's just kind of like, She had worked 6 weeks and earned $9. $1 had seemed a great deal of money only 6 weeks ago, but now $9 was not enough. If she could have earned only 1 more week's wages, that would have made $10 and a half, or 2 weeks would have made a whole $12. Yeah, she's already starting to think about money. She's 14. She knew how good it would be to stay at home again, to help with the housework and do the chores and work in the garden and to go walking with Mary and gather wildflowers and to look forward to Pa's homecoming at night. But somehow she felt cast out and hollow inside. All right, you know your job is horrible when you're looking forward to staying home and doing the housework. When you're like, "Oh boy, I can scrub the floor." Yeah, you need to seriously think about what you're doing for a living. If you're excited about working at home, doing the housework, man, that's a bad job. But there you go. She's been working, and as many people, young people discover, and women discover when they go to work, she's not working. She suddenly feels hollow. She's like cast out and hollow. My purpose. She liked having a job. There you go. Slowly, she went along the path beside Main Street. Pa was working now on the building at the corner of 2nd. He stood by a stack of shingles waiting for Laura, and when he saw her, he sang out, "Oh, look what we've got to take home to your ma." In the shade of the shingles stood a bushel basket covered with a grain sack. Inside it was a small rasping of claws and a cheeping chorus. The chickens. "Boast brought 'em in today," said Pa. 14 of them, all healthy and thriving. His whole face was beaming with anticipation of Ma's delight. He told Laura, "The basket's not heavy. You take one handle, I'll take the other, and we'll carry them level between us." They went down Main Street and out on the road toward home, carrying the basket carefully between them. Sunset was flaming in crimson and burning gold over the whole sky. The air was filled with golden light, and Silver Lake to the east was blazing like fire. Up from the basket came the chickens' wondering and anxious cheeping. "Beep, beep, 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 cheep, cheep." "Pa, Mrs. White doesn't want me anymore," Laura said. "Yes, I guess the spring rush is about over," said Pa. Laura had not thought that Pa's job might end. "Oh, Pa, won't there be any more carpentering either?" she asked. "We couldn't expect it to last all summer," said Pa. "Anyway, I'll have to be making hay pretty soon." After a while, Laura said, I only earn $9, Pa." $9 is nothing to sneeze at," said Pa. "You've done good work, too, and fully satisfied Mrs. White, haven't you?" "Yes," Laura answered honestly. "Then it's a good job well done," said Pa. And it was true that was some satisfaction. Laura felt a little better. Besides, they were taking the chickens to Ma. Ma was delighted when she saw them. Carrie and Grace crowding to peep at them in the basket. Beep, beep, beep. And Laura told Mary about them. They were healthy, lively chicks with bright black eyes and bright yellow claws. Already the down was coming off them, leaving naked patches on their necks, and the sprouting feathers were showing on their wings and tails. They were every color that chickens are, and some were spotted. Oh, there's a picture. Ma lifted each one carefully into her apron. "Mrs. Bose can't have got all these from one hatching," she said. "I do believe there's not more than 2 cockerels among them." Little chickens in her apron. Chicken. But she's saying that's a lot of chickens. She said, oh no, Mrs. Bose has given her too many chickens. She said, that's not one hatchling. Oh, she gave her all the chickens. But there's only 2 cockerels and 2 baby roosters. Well, how many roosters do you need? You know, but that's good. More eggs. The Bose have got such a head start with chickens. Likely they're planning to eat fryers this summer, said Pa. It may be she took a few cockerels out of this flock, looking on them as meat. Well, yes, and replace them with pullets that will be layers, Ma guessed. It would be Mrs. Boast all over. A more generous woman never lived. And she's saying she gave her more chickens than she thought, and all layers. Mrs. Boast is nice. Remember they had that lady, what was it, the Scots, that Mrs. Scott, who was like super duper bigoted and like mean? Hey, Mrs. Boast. Yeah, it's much nicer people. The good ones there. Well, she carried the chickens in her apron to set them one by one in the coop that Pa had already made. Hey, Pa stopped procrastinating. He started to do stuff ahead of schedule, built that coop ahead of time. That's good of him. It had a front of laths to let in air and sun, and a little door with a wooden button to fasten it. So cute. And it had no floor, but was set on clean grass that the chicks could eat. And when the grass grew, trampled and dirty, the coop could be moved to fresh grass. Oh, they just plonked it and then like scooted it over. That's weird. In an old pie pan, Mom mixed a crumbly bran mash, well peppered. Really. She set it up in the coop, and the chicks crowded onto it, gobbling up the bran mash so greedily sometimes they tried to swallow their own toes by mistake. Ew. When they could eat no more, they perched on the edge of the water pan, and scooping up water in their beaks, they stretched up their necks and tilted back their heads to swallow it. Okay, so I'm going to be chicken. That's if I drank my milk like a chicken. Ma said it would be Carrie's task to feed them often and to keep their water pan filled with cool, fresh water. I'm still getting over why she gave pepper to the chickens. To feed chickens well peppered. You give spices to the chickens? I don't know. Is this a thing? City girl, I have no idea. Do you give chickens pepper? I'm like baffled, but okay. Maybe you do. Keep their pan filled with cool, fresh water. Tomorrow, she would let the chicks out to run, and it would be Grace's part to keep a sharp lookout for hawks. Yeah, because the chomp. After supper that evening, she sent Laura to make sure that the chicks were sleeping safely. All the stars were shining over the dark prairie, and a sickle moon was low in the west. The grasses were breathing softly, asleep in the quiet night. Laura's hand felt gently over the sleeping chicks, huddled warm together in a corner of the coop. Then she stood looking at the summer night. She did not know how long she had stood there until she saw Ma coming from the house. "Oh, there you are, Laura," Ma softly said. As Laura had done, she knelt and put her hand through the coop's door to feel the huddled chicks. Then she, too, stood looking. "The place begins to look like a farm," she said. The oat field and the cornfield were shadowy pale in the darkness, and the garden was bumpy with lumps of dark leaves. Like pools of faint starshine among them spread the cucumber vines and the pumpkins. The low, sawed stable could hardly be seen, but from the house window a warm yellow light shone out. Suddenly, without thinking at all, Laura said, "Oh, Ma, I do wish Mary could go to college this fall." Unexpectedly, Ma replied, "It may be that she can. Your Pa and I have been talking about it." Laura could not speak for a minute. Then she asked, Have you said anything to her?" "Not yet," said Ma. "We must not raise hopes, only to be disappointed. But with Pa's wages and the oats and the corn, if nothing goes wrong, we think she can go this fall. We must trust to ourselves to contrive to keep her there till she finishes the full 7 years course, both college and manual training." 7 years? She's going to be a doctor. 7 years at blind college. That's a really long time. Well, I guess they're going to do all of high school, all of college, and then a certificate degree. Wowzer, 7 years. That's a long time. Then for the first time, Laura realized that when Mary went to college, she would go away. Mary would be gone. All day long, Mary would not be there. Laura could not think what living would be without Mary. "Oh, I wish," she began, and stopped. She had been so eagerly hoping that Mary could go to college. Yes, we will miss her, Ma said steadily, but we must think what a great opportunity it would be for her. I know, Ma, Laura said miserably. The night was large and empty now. The light shining from the house was warm and steady, but even home would not be the same when Mary was not there. Then Ma said, your $9 are a great help. Great help, Laura. I have been planning, and I do believe that with $9, I can buy the goods for Mary's best dress and perhaps the velvet to make her a hat. Well, that sounds grand, but don't they need to save for the actual college tuition? Or is it like she figures, well, she gotta wear something nice? Oh yes, and as Sarah just said, if nothing goes wrong, man, these people cannot do the if nothing goes wrong, because something always goes wrong. It's like always goes wrong. But poor Mary, because yeah, she's gonna go, but I mean, it's in another state. It's far away. It's not up the road. She will live there, and they will not see her, and that's like weird because they've been living in a room like this. They've been like this. Hi Mary. Hi, how are you? Hi, for years. It's not even like they didn't even have their own room. She hasn't just been living with her sister like her sister in a room. She's been sleeping in the same bed. These two have been living together, sleeping in the same bed, and now she's talking about her moving to another state to go to school. That's going to be heavy. She's going to, like, freak out. Well, I guess they'll just shove Carrie in her bed. I don't know. It's very weird. That'll be very weird. I don't know how they're going to do it. So tomorrow is Monday. And, am I on time Monday? What do I do? I have a bunch of things to do, but no, I think I'll be fine. So Monday at 1:30, I will read the 4th of July. Now, I've been doing 2 chapters, but 4th of July is, like, long. So you either get 4th of July and Blackbirds, which is also insanely long. You might just get 4th of July, because she's like, Laura does this. Like, here's a really short chapter, and now here's a whole book. So it might be the one. But there you are. We shall do this. Someone else wants me to be peanut butter. They're very good. And I'll make some more things. So tomorrow. As I said, on that website, you should be able to get it, everything. Although we're selling out so fast, you buy stuff so quickly. So things may get sold out. But as soon as I get anything, on it goes. And as for postage in all these other countries, I gotta like figure it out. But that shouldn't take too long. And as soon as I do, I'll like go clicky on the website, and it'll be fine. So Living on a Prairie was awesome. My episode was awesome. You can go back and rewatch it. And the 21st is almost upon us when we will have the whole like Prairie cast reunion as a benefit for the Actors Fund. And then it'll be the 25th, and I'll be doing my show in that part of the living room. And it's craziness. It's crazy. There you are. So take care. Wash your hands. Oh, someone mentioned the where'd it go? Mike, right there. There it is. The whisk broom, the lint brush. That's my dad's whisk broom. That's my dad, my father, Thor Arngrim picture. My father, we joke about it quite a lot. We teased him mercilessly at the time. A real neat freak. Oh, yeah. Did you ever watch The Odd Couple? You know, Felix Unger and Oscar Masson? Felix Unger all over. My father got a bit of lint there. Let me get that. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that was his whisk broom. And when he'd get dressed, whisk the lint off shoulders. He would whisk off other people. Like, pardon me, let me get that for you. It was hilarious. And he would whisk around the house. And, yes, when he passed away, I was like, I am taking the whisk broom. This is we call it the Thor Arngrim Memorial Whisk Broom. And I keep it on the mantle next to his picture because it's just, like, too funny. There you go. So tomorrow, wash your hands. Wear your mask. I got my sock monkey mask now. And, stay safe, please. Stay safe. I know stuff's opening up, but be very, very careful. Try not to get crowded. Don't go in crowded places. Be very careful. And happy Gay Pride weekend. And wait, Paco's Weasel Day.